Welcome to episode 391 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing writer-director Michael P. Blevins and actor-producer Ford Austin. They just did a horror feature called Digging to Death. We talk about that film and how they put it all together, as well as some of their previous projects. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 391. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I teach you how to write a professional log-on inquiry letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writer-director Michael P. Blevins and actor-producer Ford Austin. Here is the interview. Welcome, Michael and Ford, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you guys coming on the show with me today.
Man, this is thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business? And Ford, why don't you go first, and then Michael, you can follow up with your origin story after Ford.
Sure thing. I grew up in Oklahoma City and Dallas, Texas, and I got into the business when I was 1 year old. My parents put me in a movie that they were producing with Robert Lansing called 30 Dangerous Seconds, and that movie is available on YouTube in its entirety. 30 Dangerous Seconds, and I was 1 year old and I was a baby in a scene, and obviously, I don't remember it, but I've seen the footage. And then after that, they put us all in it as children. We were put into a casting service for extras casting that would book you back on shows and movies and stuff. And in high school, I was able to get put into a program where I left school my senior year at about 9:30 in the morning to go and audition for projects and meet casting directors, do photos, and then after that, I went to college for theater at Oklahoma City University, undergrad. And then I think my first big thing I did there after in college was a music video for Toby Keith called A Little Less Talk, A Lot More Action. And I got to be the star of that, so it was pretty fun. Then I moved up to New York City and Philadelphia and did a lot of theater and soap operas and commercials, and got my master's in acting out there. And then I said, I gotta go to LA because it's where movies are made. And I went to Los Angeles in '99 and just started acting at the Groundlings and studying improv there. And then I got cast in Pearl Harbor and worked on a bunch of other stuff. Started directing and writing and producing my own feature films and TV shows. And then after a long period of time, I kind of just developed myself, and I was on my way making a living as an actor and a director. Then I met Mike Blevins, the amazing filmmaker, and two of us never looked back. We just really liked collaborating on stuff and, lifting each other through the industry. And now I'm actually back in Oklahoma City where it all started, where I am helping people to build the industry up to a place where people here don't have to leave to go anywhere, but they can make movies, TV shows in Oklahoma City. So like a couple of people took over the convention center downtown, which is 1.3 million square feet of production space, and they've turned it into a functioning TV movie studio, motion picture studio. And we're selling it that way. And then I got another couple of friends that bought an elementary school with an 8,000 square foot gymnasium that we've converted into a sound stage. And we're building standing sets over there. and teaching people how to be on set and how to work on movies. So it's really, really kind of this great full circle thing that from where I was born until I went and worked in Hollywood and New York, and now I'm back in Oklahoma City making movies there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, great. Any Oklahoma City filmmakers or people that interested in doing that definitely should reach out to you. Michael, what's your origin story? Maybe you can kind of get us up to speed, bring us up to the point where you and Ford started to meet and collaborate on stuff.
Yeah, so I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and I was interested in making films when I was about 17 years old, and so I decided that that's what I was going to do. I was going to make movies, and went to college out there and didn't really, learn a whole lot about it. Just kind of made my own, little backyard movies there with friends, and then we ended up moving out to LA after I graduated college, and kind of started as a PA, just working really hard. And someone saw me like lifting sandbags and asked if I gripped, and I was like, no, but I'll learn, do whatever. And literally climbed the ladder from PA to grip to gaffer to owning a lighting and camera rental company to telling people that I can produce, since I produced my projects back home, and had the means, like the materials, the gear to do a lot of cool things for not a lot of money, considering it was all in-house. Mm-hmm. And I built up my producing resume pretty well, and got to a point where I knew my calling was to do movies and features. And so I was like, this is it. I just got to do it. And so I made it smart. But when I was in LA, well, actually, before I moved to LA, I was had worked with a guy named Steve Williams, who had mentioned Ford, and I'd never met Ford or heard of Ford, but told me about Ford's movies. So I watched Dahmer versus Gacy and thought it was cool. I mean, it was so long ago. But like, basically, at one point, I'm in LA. I'm I think a key grip or something like that on this show, and we're at lunch, and this guy comes in and starts handing out crew paperwork, and I look up, and it's freaking Ford Austin. And so we just met serendipitously on set as he was producing, and I was crew. That was a movie called Heels. And we at a few years later, I just felt like, after seeing his work and knowing how convicted of a filmmaker and an artist Ford is, that I'd cast him in this movie.
Gotcha. And just to touch on something, I know there's a lot of people that are getting ready to make that move as filmmakers from their city in the United States to Los Angeles. Do you have a couple of quick tips for those people? How did you get that first PA job? Is there anything that maybe you could offer to people that are going to be landing here in LA here in the next few months?
Yeah, absolutely. When I came out there, I basically just said I would work for free for anybody. And I was like, well, where would it be like where filmmakers would go to congregate? And I felt like maybe like rental houses. So I got a job at the Wooden Nickel, which is kind of like a small independent, gear vendor. And people were coming in, and I was just doing their vendor order stuff, like not just the super boring stuff. But I realized that everybody that was coming in were filmmakers, and they were like independent filmmakers. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I made up these business cards that said like, my name, and that I would PA for free and handed them out like candy. And I got a couple, just people were like, come on out, PA for free. And I just met a few people.
I'm surprised everybody didn't take you up on that offer. That's an amazing idea.
Well, I got a lot of
that is a great tip. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I ended up getting a job as like my first paid job came from, it was a guy named Matt Lauman, who's a big time producer now. He gave me an opportunity for like this British feature. It was really small potatoes. It was $70 a day for like 14-hour days, which is rough and probably even then illegal. But like, but it was a British thing, and it was you have to be humble, and you can't come out thinking like that, like you're not going to start from the bottom. And so I said, screw it. I'd rather make $70 a day doing something that I love than make $100 a day doing something that I hate. or even more money doing something I hate. But that opportunity came from a thing that where Matt Lauman had hired me for free. So it was just that move got me into the network, and then I was able to take advantage of all the opportunities and networking that move happened.
Yeah, that is an excellent tip. So let's dig into your latest film, Digging to Death. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick pitch or log line. What is this film all about?
The film's about a guy named David who, played by Mr. Austin here, that moves into a kind of a creepy old house as a fixer-upper. And as he's digging his septic hole, he finds a big wooden box that has $3 million in it and a recently deceased body. And so he has to make the moral decision whether he's going to report the body and lose all the money, or hide the money and rebury the body. So he does what we all do. He hides money in the house, and he ends up getting stalked by the corpse.
So what is the genre? It's kind because you were going sort of in a thriller-y direction, and now it's more like supernatural horror.
Yeah, it's like a supernatural. It's more honestly like psychological thriller with some mystery elements.
Mm-hmm. And where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis for it?
I was living in this other house in LA, and I knew I was moving to the house that was actually in the movie. So I was like, well, this is a great house for a location. I could write kind of a bottle movie for this location. And I was like, well, what sells? Well, horror movie sells pretty well. That'd be a good leap. So I just made that, kind of connected the dots to like making it a scary house. But what makes it scary? Well, it's got to be something that he finds. It can't just be like the dude showing up in a creepy house that looks new. It's got to be something that he finds, and then it's like in the walls, or maybe it's in the basement, or in the attic, or in the backyard. And so it was like we put a scary guy in the, could have been anything, just antagonist that he finds in the box. And then it's like, well, what would make it interesting is having the moral dilemma with the money. And so that's kind of where that all happened from.
Gotcha. So Ford, maybe we can get some of your insights on the script and the writing. What were some of the things that you really liked about this script? And then taking even a step back, just in a more general sense, again, as an actor, I get tons of screenwriters emailing me saying stuff like, hey, how do I get this actor attached? Maybe you can just tell us, what are some of the things about Digging to Death that you really liked? And just in a more general sense, what are some things that you think screenwriters should do more of? And maybe there's even some mistakes that you see screenwriters making.
The thing that I really liked about the script from an actor standpoint, and completely selfish one, anytime you're an actor looking at something that someone sent you, your agent sends it over, or the director or producers get the script to you in person, either at an office or in your hand at a party or something, when you read it, first of all, is the journey of the screenplay, is it a good journey? Is there an arc to the journey? And that's kind of the basis thing for everything. Another thing that you really want, which was taught to me by my mentor, Martin Landau at the Actors Studio, is you want to make sure that each different character has its own individual voice. And what that means is a lot of times young screenwriters, people who haven't written very long, their voices of all their characters will come out sounding very similar. And there's not a big difference between how like the antagonist and the protagonist, or even like brothers in a movie or children of their parents will sound. They'll all kind of have like the same dialogue, the same style, the same speech pattern. And at that point, it takes like an amazing casting director and an amazing cast to break those voices apart and make them individual and wholly unique. But if your characters are different and individual from the point of just reading the script at a basic table read, if they jump off the page in a unique way compared to each other, you're getting ahead of it in a really good, on a really good foot. The other thing that you look for as an actor, or that I look for as an actor, is every scene that I have, does it have a beginning, a middle, and an end? Does it have an arc to that scene? A lot of times, sometimes you'll read things that it's like the scenes are just kind of there, and it's like a placeholder to mark time to get you up to a feature-length screenplay. And if that's the case, you just got to get rid of that scene, just cut it out, or figure out as an actor collaborating with the writer and the director, how do I fill this scene that's really not working, that really doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and an end? It doesn't have an arc. It doesn't have something in the scene that moves the plot forward just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have a scene that's going to move the plot forward, why do you have the scene? Just so you can sort of have a little fun with dialogue? Well, there's only like a handful of writing filmmakers in the world that can do that. One of them that I know of is Dan Harmon. Another one is Judd Apatow. And I think that everybody else is like, you have to forward the momentum of the movie, the journey of the screenplay with each scene. And, a really great example is anything that Spielberg has done. When you watch these old Spielberg movies and any Indiana Jones film, each scene does something to further the plot. I mean, it's like obvious, it's blatant, and it's wonderful. And so when I look at that as an actor, I know if I don't see those things, if I don't see, an overall arc of the movie, a journey of the movie, a journey of my character within the journey of the movie, different sounding characters, an overall arc from scene to scene, and scenes that move it forward. And I know it's going to be an uphill battle making the movie.
And Michael, I'll flip that around. I think that's interesting what Ford is talking about there. Did you have Ford in mind for this role as you were writing it? And how does that influence the writing, the voices? Are these actors, the actors you're using, actors you've worked with before, so you kind of know their voice and you try and put that into the writing? Or was it more just not tailored to Ford, but any actor could fill in there? Maybe talk about that a little bit, Michael. Just what was sort of the voices of some of these characters? Did you have some of these actors already in mind?
Yeah, I definitely had Rachel Ailig in mind, and Tom Fitzpatrick, who played the corpse so well. Definitely had him in mind. I wasn't sure who I was writing David for necessarily. I had a couple people kind of. Ford was one of them, just sort of thoughts, but at the same time, it wasn't one of those where I was like, okay, I got a guy, he's a buddy, I know he'd do it, so I'm just going to go ahead and make, convict myself to this character being kind of with these quirks, make it a little easier, or I can see this person having a fun time making this a challenge for them, but it would fit. It was one of those, like, I just need to make this character sort of get through the story at this juncture, and then let whoever I bring in sort of fill in the holes as far as what they bring to the table. And Ford brought a lot of good stuff to the table on this one.
Maybe you can take us through your writing process a little bit. Where do you typically write, and when do you typically write? Do you need to go to Starbucks to have that ambient noise? Do you have a home office? Do you write in the morning, in the evening? What does your writing schedule look like?
It honestly just depends on how I'm feeling. I really don't like, I know that there's the school of thought that even if you don't have inspiration, if you just sit and start writing something, anything, something will happen, which I think is a great idea if you're going to try and start like page one, but I want to get a script out, but I'm not like super inspired. Yeah, maybe that works. But I feel like most writers get that click, that idea where they're just like, oh my God. And then they got to go and they got to write it down, or at least they got to put it in their phone. So when they can write it down later, it's there. And like, for me, I've been at points where I've had that aha moment, but I didn't have a chance to write it down right away. But the more I thought about it, the more I was able to really iron out all of the details of that aha moment and really make it work. But I found that like it's either when I'm inspired or, wildly enough, late at night. It could be anywhere that's quiet, like my living room or my office, or I just like to just sort of be able to go into the zone and it just be silent, and just what I'm writing feels like I'm watching the movie. already. And it feels like because I'm not a night owl at all. But if I stay up until 4 a.m. writing, I can get through maybe 20 pages, like it wouldn't surprise me to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about a little bit of the collaboration. At what point, Michael, did you bring Ford into this? Did you have a pretty polished draft before you approached him? Did you approach him with a first or second draft that still needed a little more rewriting? And then how did the development work between Ford and you?
By the time I approached Ford, I think I was on draft 8 of that. So it was pretty polished up. Like all of the characters had all of their little nuances at that point. I think that's why Ford agreed initially was because he enjoyed the script, and since we hadn't worked together, he hadn't seen what I was capable of necessarily bringing to the table with an unfinished script. So having that nice polished script, I know like he really liked. But yeah, I know there were times where Ford, would reference things that he had learned at the Actors Studio that I really liked. And it was really cool because it was a collaboration, which I think is really healthy between directors and actors. It's not just supposed to be this. It's kind of what the movie ends up wanting it to be. And it's because everybody is bringing their A game to the table, but not everybody's A game looks the same. So it's cool to see what someone else's A game might look like. And it actually might be a better flavor than yours. And so that was a lot of, Ford's involvement in that.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so you have a script that's pretty polished. You're starting to get a cast. What is your steps then to try and raise money? Did you try and just send it to like the typical place, Lionsgate, and try and get some funding that way through more established production companies? Did you try and just raise the money independently? Maybe you can talk about that a little bit, about raising the money and getting this thing into production.
Yeah. So I had found a couple $100,000 through a producer who had made films in the past through like finding like outsourced funds. And he actually found $100,000 from like a club owner and $100,000 from a magazine owner that we're both going to throw in. And they were like, okay, so this is the scoop. We need to change the title, probably change the ending a little bit. And which I feel like was stupid because that was the best part. But they're also like, but then they're like, we want you to have a co-director. And I was like, oh, I could have done the other two maybe, but this co-director thing is a deal breaker for me. And they fought me on it. And then finally they're like, look, the money's going to go away. And I was like, then sorry, I guess it's going away. And because I wasn't going to settle to because honestly, I guess if your listeners aren't familiar with the co-director scam, if your financier puts a co-director in the movie, they're basically like a blonde stooge at that point. They're just someone there to protect the money, but then they also feel like they can throw in some creative input, even though most of the time the writer is the director. These co-directors can throw in some creative input and blah, blah, blah. So when something is good, they take half the credit. But when something is bad, they step off, and then you're responsible for the screw up or whatever. They don't take half of the fault. So I highly recommend that anybody that's listening, if they ever have an opportunity to get money in with the sacrifice of having a co-director, find other money. It's worth it. I actually had to take, I said that I had, was a grip, and then I was a gaffer, and I learned that the gaffer that showed up with the trucks, made more money than the gaffer that didn't show up with the trucks. So I put together lighting packages that I was familiar with and made decent money that way. And actually decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take all the revenue from this lighting company. And from 2017, and I'm going to make this movie. And it was rough. I definitely was not expecting to pay for it myself, necessarily, but it was a very odd way to raise funding, but it worked and it did it. And honestly, I can say that if you can maintain your IP and your ownership without having to get money, even if you're paying for it yourself, if it's like you own it, where you're the only one getting checks from the distributor, is the most, fiscally rewarding way to go, if it's possible,
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, it's congratulations sticking to your guns, and seeing it through. Do you still have the lighting company in Burbank? Are you still part of that?
No, it's in Granada Hills.
Granada. Okay.
It's called T-Rex Lighting and Camera.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So if there's any filmmakers out there that want to hook up with that, that's a nice little plug too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what advice do you guys have, just as we wrap the interview up, what just sort of general advice do you guys have for people that are looking to break into the business? And maybe Ford, you can go first, and then Michael, if you have any parting wisdom for writers, that'd be awesome.
Sure. My advice is to just make your own movie. Just write a script for yourself and start shooting it. The secret to being a filmmaker is to make films. And the only reason that you aren't a filmmaker is because you're not making films. If they're funded or not doesn't matter. As long as you make them and you figure out if you're trying to sell it, figure out what's sellable about it, and then target that distributor.
Michael, what about you? You have any parting wisdom for our writers?
I'd love to say that write what you want to watch. Don't write or make what you think other people are going to want to see. That no one wants to see that. No one wants to read that. People want to read and people want to watch your idea, your fresh, cool idea. Because if it entertains you, then then your work's done. And wildly enough, I feel like when you stuck to your guns and you write something that you love and you want to see and that you think is badass or you think is moving or you think is important, that's when people gravitate towards your project or your movie. But as soon as you start writing stuff that you think, oh, people are going to love this, or people are going to love that, you either end up with crap or a Hallmark movie, which is debatably could be the same. So,
but either of those is still a sellable thing.
Yeah, sellable or not, I'm just saying, write what you want to see. Don't try and write for what you think the crowds are going to want. Write what you think is cool.
How can people see Digging to Death? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Yeah, it's actually out right now on DVD and on demand, like digital. So it's basically everywhere right now except for Netflix. And I think we'll find out here in a few months if they're gonna pick it up. But that would be awesome.
Nice. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you guys are doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing. And just so the audience can tell who's speaking forward, why don't you go first? And then Michael, anything you're comfortable sharing, you can follow up after Ford.
Yeah, if anybody wants to find out about what I'm doing, they can just go to Facebook or Twitter. Angry Baby Monkey is my handle, all spelled out, no spaces or dashes. And you can
Perfect.
Follow me on IMDb and just look for the pink unicorn picture. And my contact info is there as well. So if any independent filmmakers or people that want to make their films need a producer or an actor to star in their movie, they should just reach out to me through my IMDb page.
Okay, perfect. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, I stay up on Instagram. So you can hit me up on Instagram at blevfilm_LA. And yeah, I'm the same way. If I can help anybody achieve their dreams or help make something happen, I have the resources. We can make some magic.
Perfect. I really appreciate you guys coming on. We'll round all that stuff up for the show notes so people can click over to it. I really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day and coming on the show. Good luck with this film and good luck with all your future films as well.
And thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
us.
it.
Good luck. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We'll talk to you later. Bye. SYS's From Concept to Completion Screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing producer Suzanne De Laurentiis, who's doing a new show called Suzanne's Saturday Night Scares, which showcases classic horror films, and she brings some of the cast on to talk to them. But Suzanne is also a seasoned producer, and we dig into a number of her projects, how she's able to get those projects produced, how she found the scripts, how she hired writers, and ultimately how she's been able to work with writers throughout, and gives a lot of great tips. To writers and what she's looking for as a producer. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's the show. Thank you for listening.